Namo Ramana, prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are gathering together for the Ramana Satsang, the Saturday Satsang, which has offerings of chanting, music, reading, self-enquiry, talks, and Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan. We begin the prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Nandakumarji.
Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namas Satvikam Shivam Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam hridiram Sake swayam likyate katham hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam Sakshat Atmarupena Bhakti Hridivishanasam Chinvata Achyata Chananarodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Brahmayavat Janamakam Aham buddhirnatasyastito Naham tattata bhava shukti samaye siddharma saddha Soham spurtikaya arunachala shiva Guru Shivaya Arunachala Shiva Vibhati Swayam.
Namo Ramana. We continue the Satsang with the chanting of verses from Upadesa Saram by Ashwini Balaji and Uma Sripathy.
नमो रमण परतुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलम् कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडम् कृतिमहो दधौ पतनकारणम् फलमशाश्वतम् गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितम् नेच्छया कृतम् चित्तशोधकम् मुक्तिसाधकम् कायवाङ्मन कार्यमुत्तमम् पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषदि युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिबृहद्देव पूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दत चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतत्परं भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिधा पावनीमत भावशून्य सद्भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मनः स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the 3 offerings of Ramananjali music. The first one will be by Srimati Radha, accompanied by Vallabh. The second one by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. And the third musical offering by Revathi Sankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today we have selected a song written by Sri Sadhu Swami. The Telugu translation is by Sri J.H. Bhimacharya and the music is by Sri H.K. Narayana. జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో దేవావళి వేదావళి వెదకినా దొరకని దేవావళి వేదావళి వెదకినా దొరకని దేవుడీవు శ్రీరమణ జపతపములకు దేవుడీవు శ్రీరమణ జపతపములకు చిక్కిదవ రమణ జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో వీధులందు తిరుగుచున్న ఈ పామర జీవుని వీధులందు తిరుగుచున్న ఈ పామర జీవుని ఉద్ధరించిన రమణ పట్టితి శ్రీపాదం ఉద్ధరించిన రమణ పట్టితి శ్రీపాదం దాటితి భవసాగరం జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో పూర్వ పుణ్యం కాదు నేటి తపము కాదు పూర్వ పుణ్యం కాదు నేటి తపము కాదు నీ కరుణామృతమే నను బ్రోచ బ్రోచినది నీ కరుణామృతమే నన్ను బ్రోచినది నాకిక జననం లేదు జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో తల్లి తండ్రి నీవేనయ్యా సద్గురు రమణ తల్లి తండ్రి నీవేనయ్యా సద్గురు రమణ ఆత్మ విచారం తెలిపిలో చూపు ఇచ్చితివి ఆత్మ విచారం తెలిపిలో చూపు ఇచ్చితివి నీలో చేర్చితివి జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో జ్ఞానం ధ్యానం సాధనం ఒకటి లేని నాకు రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో రమణ ఎట్లు దొరకితివి కారణమేమో నమో రమణ
ತಂದೆ ನೀನೆ ತಾಯಿ ನೀನೆ ಬಂಧು ಬಳಗವು ನೀನೆ ರಮಣ ತಂದೆ ನೀನೆ ತಾಯಿ ನೀನೆ ಬಂಧು ಬಳಗವು ನೀನೆ ರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದು ಈ ಚರಾಚರಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಆಸರೆಯಾಗಿಹ ದೈವಿ ಕರುಣ ಎಂದೆಂದು ಈ ಚರಾಚರಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಆಸರೆಯಾಗಿಹ ದೈವಿ ಕರುಣ ಭಾವಯೋಗ್ಯವು ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ಭಾವಯೋಗ್ಯವು ನೀನೇ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಮಾರ್ಗವೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ತಂದೆ ನೀನೆ ತಾಯಿ ನೀನೆ ಬಂಧು ಬಳಗವು ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ವೇದ ನುಡಿಸಿ ರುದ್ರನ ಮೋದಗೊಳಿಸುವ ಸಾಧುವರರ ಗುರುನಾದ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯೇ ವೇದ ನುಡಿಸಿ ರುದ್ರನ ಮೋದಗೊಳಿಸುವ ಸಾಧುವರರ ಗುರುನಾದ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯೇ ಧ್ಯಾನಿಯದೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಲ್ಲನೆ ಸುಳಿದು ಬಾನಿನ ಗಲಕು ಬೆಳಗುವ ಕೀರ್ತಿಯೇ ಧ್ಯಾನಿಯದೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಲ್ಲನೆ ಸುಳಿದು ಬಾನಿನ ಗಲಕು ಬೆಳಗುವ ಕೀರ್ತಿಯೇ ತಂದೆ ನೀನೇ ತಾಯಿ ನೀನೇ ಬಂಧು ಬಳಗವು ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದು ನೀ ಚರಾಚರಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಆಸರೆಯಾಗಿಹ ದೈವಿ ಕರುಣ ಭಾವಯೋಗ್ಯವು ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಮಾರ್ಗವೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ತಂದೆ ನೀನೆ ತಾಯಿ ನೀನೆ ಬಂಧು ಬಳಗವು ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ
ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. Today we will be meditating on the 22nd verse of Ramana Suprabhatam written by Sri Shantananda Puri Swami. अत्याश्रमे विचरतः शुखवामदेवान् को वेत्ति किन्तु भगवान् रमणो हि द्रष्टः प्रत्यक्ष एव समकालजनैरनेकैः श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम् अत्याश्रमे विचरतः शुखवामदेवान् को वेत्ति किन्तु भगवान् रमणो हि द्रष्टः प्रत्यक्ष एव समकालजनैरनेकैः श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम्. Good morning, O Bhagavan of Arunachala. Who has seen Shuka and Vamadeva, reputed as wandering sages beyond the restriction of Varnashrama? However, many contemporaneous people have actually seen Bhagavan Ramana face to face. There are so many devotees who have been blessed to see Bhagavan Ramana. Till date, when we see people who have seen Ramana and who talk about Ramana and his presence, there is joy at that moment. That moment becomes very joyous and very happy. So for all of us, Bhagavan has come to give us peace, happiness, joy. Just by seeing him, his form, in many ways, in his photographs, in his videos, till date, all of us are enjoying his presence because he is the unlimited, limitless self, which is there everywhere. I present to you a song written by Shuddhananda Bharati, music by L. Krishnan. Ramana, 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 Parane Guhane Varane परिपूरणने वरुवाय परने गुहने वरने परिपूरणने वरुवाय बीरमत्तुरिय पेरुविन विरिवे पिरिवा पिरवा निलये पिरिया उरवे बीरमत्तुरिय पेरुविन विरिवे पिरवा निलये पिरिया उरवे रमणा 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 करुणालयने वरुवाय कदिरार கடலே வருவாய் கருணாலயனே வருவாய் கதிரார் கடலே வருவாய் உருஹம்படியா குருதி பொருளே தருணம் தருணம் தரணி கருள்வாய் உருஹம்படியா குருதி பொருளே तरुणं तरुणं धरणी करुள்வாய் रमणा 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 अडियारिदयाम्बुयने अरुणाडहने अभयम् हरियारिदयाम्बुयने अरुणाडहने अभयम् तुडिया निलये सुडर्मामणिये सुगनायकने अभयम् अभयम् तुडियानिलये सुडर्मामणिये सुगनायकने अभयम् अभयम् रमणा 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 नमो रमणा.
Namo Ramana. We continue today's satsang with the reading by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue the readings from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been reading in the last week from the article contributed by our president, Dr. Sarada. However, she was introduced in the book, she has been introduced in the book as Dr. Sarada is the editor of the monthly The Ramana Way, published by the Ramana Maharshi Center, author of Ramana Way in Search of the Self and Ramana Tata. The article speaks for itself, so I go into it. Ramana, the enigma, there is a significant question mark at the end of that Akka is not stating that he is an enigma, but she is putting it across to us that he is Ramana, the enigma. So we go into the reading. I lead with the last paragraph that we had read in the last week and then go ahead with this week's reading. This indeed is the enigma that is Bhagavan. What indeed is that? Can one know hunger yet be totally indifferent to food? Can one love deeply yet have no longing for the beloved's company, no pangs of separation? Can one experience pain yet smile softly when leeches have attached themselves to one's painful malignant tumor? Can one grieve at death yet be untouched by sorrow? Can one be genuinely concerned that everyone who comes into one's presence is well fed, yet not expend a single thought for the starving millions of the world? Can one give away gifts with thoughtful tenderness and then reclaim them simply because a ruling says so? Can one be angry without feeling anger? Can one spend a whole day on carving a wooden star and give it away to any old man who comes one's way? Can one share and dissolve the suffering of every man, yet emphatically declare that others should not be one's concern? This indeed is the enigma that is Bhagavan. He is so fully in everything, so naturally a part of all that happens in his presence, yet so totally apart. Is this really possible? It cannot be denied either, for so many are witnesses to it, or witness to it. In fact, the answer lies in the seeming paradox. The answer lies in the seeming paradox itself, within the very folds of the apparent mystery. For it is only one who completely participates in the present who can remain unhurried by the future, unbullied by the past, unsullied by the softest stroke of longing, of desire, uncrossed by the lightest shadow of thought, untainted by the identity is such a one. Untainted by identity is such a one. He knows hunger, but is indifferent to food, experiences pain, but is totally detached from it, shivers in the cold, but seeks not to possess a single garment, brings perfection to all. He does, yet is not attached to either the process or product of perfection, cares deeply about every little thing, yet is anxious about nothing, pays loving attention to all who come to him, yet his attention is ever only on the self. We begin this week's reading. Bhagavan has not just lived this miracle for all to see and wonder at. He repeatedly emphasized that it is not only possible but natural for each one of us to partake of this miracle, not merely as witnesses but as our very own experience. The limitation of name and form is merely something we have superimposed on our true nature. In truth, we are unlimited, complete, immortal, ever blissful. If we are complete, if there is nothing outside the self, where would there be room for fear? What can one desire then? One can only want that which one does not already possess, that which is outside of oneself. If all is the self, then where is the room for need? Nothing can be added on to fullness. I'll repeat that again. If we are complete, if there is nothing outside the self, where would there be room for fear? What can one desire then? One can only want that which one does not already possess, that which is outside of oneself. If all is the self, then where is the room for need? Nothing can be added on to fullness. If nothing is apart from the self, there would only be the natural bliss experienced in every form. This indeed is the overflowing of spontaneous love. For where there is no need, there is no expectation, no disappointments, no frustration and bitterness, no barriers whatsoever. Only the natural peace and joy are shared. Even the word sharing is inappropriate, for nothing is given, nothing is taken. What already is but lies hidden is then experienced in all its glory. Though we see Bhagavan and marvel at him, though we adore him, though we profess faith in his words and that his state is ours also, we are not attracted by it. We offer many excuses, voiced and unvoiced. We do not want a state that transcends desire, for we firmly believe that only in the fulfillment of desire lies joy. We do not want to love all the world, for that seems to us too vast, too abstract, too indefinite. If all the world belongs to us, it seems, in fact, nothing belongs to us. And that, in a sense, is true. Bhagavan possessed nothing. He owned nobody. We are afraid of this. We would rather cling to a small family we could call our own, with all its restlessness and bickerings and hurts springing from identity clashes. Of course, there are some joys too, but these keep us holding on. And these keep us holding on. Sometimes we offer as an excuse the question, what would become of my people if I become self-realized and cease to care for them? Are not these propositions absurd? If the whole universe is one's very own, indeed the self itself, would one's family alone be excluded? I'll read that. If the whole universe is one's very own, indeed the self itself, would one's family alone be excluded? If the very source of joy has been reached, could the happiness springing from one or two fulfilled desires ever be greater? By having these doubts, we are denying the very purpose of Bhagavan's lives. We are questioning what we have seen and known in him. Could there be one more joyous? Then how can we believe joy comes from the pursuit of desire? Could there be one who radiates greater peace than Bhagavan? What void do we fear than in the loss of identity? Could any greater good accrue to the world from all our services than did flow from Bhagavan's presence? Could we ever bring together the old and the rich and the poor, the old and the young, the rich and the poor, the learned and the ignorant, the happy and the sad, the maimed and the whole, people of every religion and no religion, every living being, dogs, squirrels, snakes, cows, monkeys, as did happen before Bhagavan? And each one experienced an inexplicable peace, a boundless joy never before tasted. He hands us that joy on a platter as it were, and we refuse it. He repeatedly tells us it is our own. We doubt still. He even gives us a simple means to find out for ourselves. We lack the spirit of adventure. He reasons with us. See your own daily experience, he cajoles. You take yourself to be a given name and form. What happens to it in dream? He asks. Does it not change? How? The body does not change, does it? It is the mind then which creates the dream identity regardless of the body. So one must be the mind that has the power to identify with a physical body while awake and a mental body in dream. I will read that segment again. He hands us that joy on a platter as it were, and we refuse it. He repeatedly tells us it is our own. We doubt still. He even gives us a simple means to find out for ourselves. We lack the spirit of adventure. He reasons with us. See your own daily experience. He cajoles. You take yourself to be a given name and form. What happens to it in dreams? He asks. Does it not change? How? The body does not change, does it? It is the mind then which creates the dream identity regardless of the body. So, one must be the mind that has the power to identify with the physical body while awake and with the mental body in dream. What happens then in deep sleep? When there is no identification, when there is not even the sense of I, where does the I disappear daily? From where does it arise? Are you not even curious about your own nature? Are you happy leading your lives for a total stranger? Thus Bhagavan exhorts us repeatedly. For what is it? For that is what it amounts to, does it not? If we do not know, if we know not who we really are, we are only living with a stranger. But we remain unreasonable, uninquisitive, dogged in our pursuit of the dull routine. Are you happy leading your lives for a total stranger? Thus Bhagavan exhorts us repeatedly. For that is what it amounts to, does it not? If we know not who we really are, we are only living with a stranger. But we remain unreasonable, uninquisitive, dogged in our pursuit of the dull routine. Why? Why are we not gripped by the spirit of self-enquiry? Why are we not struck by the urgency, the need to find out who we really are? Is it because we have found lasting happiness already? Why then do we keep seeking? Why are we restless? Or can any one of us declare that we do not want happiness? Is there any who can testify that sorrow is what they seek? Or at least intermittent sorrow and disharmony and violence, age and disease and pain and death? If indeed these be our goals, then we are on the right path. If we would rather taste infinite bliss and peace, harmony and immortality, we have Bhagavan Ramana to turn to. All we are asked to do is to realize that what we have all along taken ourselves to be is hardly the truth about ourselves. And as a consequence of this recognition would stem an automatic intense inquiry. If I am not all this, who am I? Naturally, there can be no answer to this question from us, for all the solutions that we offer would belong to the realm that we have just discarded. Hence, there can only be a seeking, a fiery seeking, a seeking so complete that it would exclude all other thought. If I feel I do not know myself and wish to know who I am, how can I think of anything connected with me? Every thought would be invalid, irrelevant, when the thinker is under scrutiny, when the thinker is suspect. When attention is on the thinker, there would be none to spare for other thoughts. When attention is on the thinker, there would be no attention or nothing left to spare for other thoughts. One would simply be in the grip of the enquiry. The answer then would reveal itself. I'll read this last paragraph again. Why? Why are we not gripped by the spirit of self-enquiry? Why are we not struck by the urgency, the need to find out who we really are? Is it because we have found lasting happiness already? Why then do we keep seeking? Why are we restless? Or can any one of us declare that we do not want happiness? Is there any who can testify that sorrow is what they seek? Or at least intermittent sorrow and disharmony and violence, age and disease and pain and death, is that what we seek? Asks Akka. If indeed these be our goals, then we are on the right path. If we would rather taste infinite bliss and peace, harmony and immortality, we have Bhagavan Ramana to turn to. All we are asked to do is to realize that what we have all along taken ourselves to be is hardly the truth about ourselves. And as a consequence of this recognition would stem an automatic intense enquiry. If I am not all this, who am I? Naturally, there can be no answer to this question from us, for all the solutions that we offer would belong to the realm that we have just discarded. Hence, there can only be a seeking, a fiery seeking, a seeking so complete that it would exclude all other thought. If I feel I do not know myself and wish to know who I am, how can I think of anything connected with me? Every thought would be invalid, irrelevant, when the thinker is under scrutiny, when the thinker is suspect. When attention is on the thinker, there would be none to spare for other thoughts. One would simply be in the grip of the enquiry. The answer then would reveal itself. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. So by Bhagavan's grace, let us be gripped by the spirit of self-enquiry, and that infinite grace is allowing us to have a practice session of self-enquiry in our satsang today, and this session will be conducted by Sri Dileep Simha.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindekshanam Bhaktabhishtavarabhayapradakaram Kaupinamatrojvalam Swatmanandarasanubhuti vivasham Sarvanavadyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramanishwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षातात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामज्जतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. Namo Ramana. We will commence the evening Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. As usual, I will be reading from the book Guruvachaka Kovai from the chapter or section Meditation on the Truth. The topic for the evening is the benefit of Gnana bestowing Vairagya. Verse 839. What a wonder! The sadhu who has a majestic mind and who moves about with no possessions, feeling, I do not want anything, confounds the understanding of a king who deserves to be much pitied because of the anxieties that whirl his mind. I repeat the verse. What a wonder! The sadhu who has a majestic mind and who moves about with no possessions, feeling, I do not want anything, confounds the understanding of a king who deserves to be much pitied because of the anxieties that whirl his mind. In this verse, Bhagavan is introducing us to the importance of the Vairagya. That Vairagya alone makes us really experience the Gnana. Gnana is not really an understanding. It is to be experienced, relished, and that only comes about because of Vairagya. And towards what is that we need to have the Vairagya? Bhagavan says, I do not want anything. As Nandakumarji was saying, that everything is nothing but the self. If we don't see, if we don't recognize it that way, then we are still identified with a division, that I am separate and there are something else as objects to either possess or reject. So as long as that idea persists in us, and if we don't have real Vairagya towards it, then there will be always some objects which will make us crave for or move away from. And therefore, we don't experience that majestic mind which Bhagavan is talking about here, where no possession is sought. Actually, in the self, as self is everything, there is nothing apart. In the pure self, as Akka had beautifully introduced, that Bhagavan brings us day again and again to that deep sleep experience of ours, and where he reveals that we were quite okay when there were no objects. In the same way, in the waking state, when all these divisions are rising, if we have only Vairagya towards that false idea of division, but recognize that not everything is the self and therefore there is nothing needed for me to possess. And if you remain in that majestic state of mind, Bhagavan says that such a Gnani is far better than a king who has to be pitied, though he has a kingdom and all the things, is continuously in a state of anxiety because of the mind which is still afraid of losing something or which is still craving to gain something else. So it is important to recognize this Vairagya, that state of mind of ours wherein we are continuously ours to this division that keeps rising because of the strong vasanas that we have. And to that, Bhagavan has given us the Atma Vichara, wherein every thought which rises sheerly because of a division called I, apart from the self, which alone is the pure being consciousness, something rises holding on to this gross body and names and forms as I and as a thinker. Every time it rises, Bhagavan asks us to diligently inquire to whom is this thought. Then the thinker, the I, the division becomes available for us for vichara. Bhagavan further asks us to inquire, who am I? What is this I that I refer to really? And where from this I thought is springing within me? When we trace the I to its source, then we realize that this false division which existed is not, it's only a mere concept or not real. What is that being consciousness alone, ever shining, and there is nothing apart from it. And therefore, it is seen to be the substratum, the screen on which all these thoughts come and go, but the screen never changes. And it is never possible for one to experience the screen by holding on to the movie which is being played. No matter how much we may explain in a movie about the screen, only when the movie completely stops, the screen becomes naturally available to see. So that is the Vairagya which Bhagavan is talking about. The immense grace of Bhagavan with which we have come to this most direct path. Let us do Atma Vichara for the next 10 minutes. Namo Bhagavate Ramanaya. Thank you.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotra by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Vande Guru Parampara. Vande Guru Parampara. We're doing Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. Why are we doing? So every time this question should arise in our mind. Why are we doing whatever we are doing? So Bhagavan says, God in the form of Guru, God in the form of Guru with form, Guru has form, God in the form of Guru with form takes me to the formless. When I transcend form, I become fearless because I am deathless. So that's the reason we are doing this Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. So we're doing Manana on the verse number 5 today, and the beauty about thing is it's the same thread that we are going through today evening is remover of the ignorance. So Nandakumar spoke about the same thing, Dileep spoke about the same thing, and Dakshinamurti also, verse 5 is talking about remover of the ignorance. So I request Sapna to kindly chant the Dhyana Shloka and verse number 5, please.
Yes, sir. Maunavyakhya prakatitat parabrahma tattvam yuvanam Vashishthante vasadrushiganaih avrutam brahmanishtaih Acharyendram karakalita chinmudramanandamurtim Swatmaramam muditavadanam Dakshinamurtimide Deham pranamapindriyaanyaphi chalam buddhim cha shunyam viduhu Stri balandha jadopamaस्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ता भृशं वादिनः Maya shakti vilasa kalpita mahavyamoha samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Deham pranamapindriyaanyaphi chalam buddhim cha shunyam viduhu Stri balandha jadopamaस्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पिता महाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru who teaches the knowledge of Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is a teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, who reveals in himself, and who is ever silent. That's the Dhyana Shloka meaning. We'll run through the meaning, basic meaning of the verse number 5. He who removes all the terrible misconceptions created by the deluding play of Maya in those who intellectually innocent as a woman, child, blind, idiot, and consider the reality as their body or their prana or their senses or their ever-changing intellect or as mere void, and through error, misconceptions, declare them to be the only reality. To him, the divine teacher, Sri Dakshinamurti, is this prostration. So in this verse, everyone has an opinion. So this is a beautiful first sentence. Everyone has an opinion. However, this verse specifically refers to opinion on the self. Opinion about who am I. Interestingly, when someone has an opinion, they do not say it is their opinion. They say it is what it is. Interestingly, when someone has an opinion, they do not say it is their opinion. They say it is what it is. They claim what they know is the absolute truth. They also express this opinion or teach others all the time. People having opinion on spiritual matters are referred to as philosophers here. In reality, opinions are typically based on individuals' orientation. This refers to different opinions about I am this, aham iti. Some people have opinion about body, deham. Their opinion is that I am this body, deham aham iti. Materialistic people have the opinion that the real in the world is stuff, matter. Therefore, they think what is real about me is the body, which is deham. Similarly, to modern materialists, there were ancient materialists. They were called Charvaka. It is a philosophical school of materialism. Their philosophy about the world is that what you see is what you get. Their opinion, the world is real. They opine the world is real. These philosophers say the body is real, I. There are other philosophers who say, I am the life force. Prana, ahamiti. Also, some others says, I am the senses. Indriyani ahamiti. Hedonists are such people who just want to enjoy. They seek pleasure and happiness through senses. They just want to eat, drink, watch television, movies, etc. Many others say, I am the active intellect. A lot of scientists, modern people think that they are the powerful mind or intellect. Others say, I am the non-existent. Shunya Mahamiti. On the surface, it sounds ridiculous to say that I am non-existence. However, the people who say that are not ridiculous. They are sophisticated philosophers. Many happen to be Buddhists. They have a doctrine saying emptiness, shunyavad. This doctrine says that there is no Atma. That is, a living being is an assemblage of body, mind, senses, intellect, etc. This assemblage without soul is a sentient being. This Shunyavada is also called Nairatmavada. These different types of philosophers mentioned above express their opinions all the time. The reason behind their marketing about their opinion is that they are deluded, they are confused. Not surprisingly, their opinions are based on their own personal experience. It is based on their own perspective, and almost invariably, it is not the full truth. That's the reason we all the time we read from Bhagwan's books and authentic places, because we don't put our own opinions in any matter, because it may have its own limitations. You can have the opinion about the politics, about economics, about anything, and your opinion probably expresses some truth. Your opinion probably does not express the whole truth. Every opinion should probably have its limitation and have some errors. According to Sri Shankara, all of such people have opinions or doctrines are confused. Vedas are the means. Vedas are the means of knowledge. Pramanam. They represent the complete truth. The truth is not expressed by opinions of deluded people. Sri Shankara describes types of confused people having all these different opinions. Types of people mentioned above are deluded. They have opinion all the time about who am I. Sri Shankara includes women. Let us understand the background for that. This stotram was written in ancient times. We have to admit that some cultures are androcentric up until modern times. So this is just a statement that happens to be androcentric. Sri Shankara lived 1200 years ago. He was born in Kerala. He lived in a very traditional settings in India. His world was androcentric. His world was of sannyasis who were all men. So that was his orientation. That was his perspective. This statement should simply be taken as a product of his time and culture. Also, during that time, women were mostly living household life due to safety and security reasons. The Vedantic teachings were accessible only to those who go out and lived with Guru in Gurukuls. Without these teachings, a person is not generally able to get this supreme knowledge. So naturally, women in those days were deprived from having access to this knowledge. So this statement also represents those people who have not gained this knowledge, thus are deluded. Other types of people who are considered deluded are children or those who are childish, such as narrow-minded philosophers. Blind, andha, is also included for the people that are not in physical sense but knowledge-wise blind to the reality. Those people who can't see the truth. Stupid are the people who cannot think properly. All these people are deluded. The problem is that they are not just deluded, but they have their strong opinion and they share or teach that to others. It impacts others. If you are in the presence of negative people who are always miserable, complaining, negative, pessimistic, it does impact you negatively. The whole world is full of such deluded people. So almost everyone will tell you that this body is me, or life force is me, or senses are me. These are common perspectives. As a Vedantin, you live in a world of non-Vedantin. You live surrounded by people who don't share Vedantic perspective. Their conclusions are very different from yours. Their influence can cause confusion. So we need help to remove these wrong conclusions. We find that in the last part of this verse. So important thing what Bhagavan is trying to tell here is that opinions are there. Everybody has an opinion. But important thing, why do we have satsang? Why do you have satsang in the morning? Why do you have satsang in the evening? Why do you have satsang at night? Morning times are times when the mind, you start the day with the morning and your mind gets, if it has, you're in satsang, it gets channelized. Similarly, evening times are people like to gossip around. So again, if you're in satsang, again your thoughts are channelized. Similarly, at night, if it is properly channeled. So Bhagavan says, if you move around with people there are people who don't believe in God. There are people who don't have faith. If you move around with them, then what's going to happen? Let's go to rub on. It is like that crystal. If you put a petal or a rose petal on behind it, it takes on the color of that of the rose petal, though it is pure. So that's what Bhagavan is saying. You live surrounded by people who don't share Vedantic perspective, the people who live the worldly lives, who don't care about this spiritual life. Their conclusions are very different from yours. Their influence can cause confusion. You can get confused. If you say, Hridaya Kuhara Madhya Kevalam Brahma Matram, somebody may say, what? God is sitting in your heart, cave of your heart. That's all utter nonsense. God is not there. He's sitting up in the skies. And the devil is sitting down on the ground. So you will start believing it. If you go on thinking about it, you will start believing it. The important thing is we have to channelize our thing, and if you pray to Dakshinamurti, he will remove all these confusions and keep us in the right path. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. That was a prayer also to Dakshinamurti to remove all our confusions and keep us on the right path. That is what a guru does. A guru destroys darkness, the darkness of ignorance. So he is called a guru who removes the darkness of ignorance. And Ganapati Muni declared to all of us that Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi is a word teacher. He said that he not only said to all his disciples, I have found my guru, my master, and from today you must also accept him as your guru, your master, and know him as Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Ganapati Muni has composed 40 verses in praise of Bhagavan, which are chanted every day at Sri Ramanashramam in front of Ramaneshwara Mahalinga. And Ujwal Jagadeesh is sharing his manana, his meditations on the Ramana Chattvarimsha with us. Now we have the sharing of Ujwal Jagadeesh.
ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय। धर्मेनाशमुपागते त्रिभुवने पर्याकुले पापतः प्रज्ञाने परितो गिरं पतिमुद सञ्चार्यमाणे जनैः सद्भावे परमेश्वरस्य च पितु सन्देह डोलाङ्गते द्वीपकैतवमर्त्यके कितुरग त्वामन्तर कसतां रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः ಸಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ತ್ರಿಲೋಕವು ಮರುಳಾಗಿದೆ ಪಾಪದಿ ನಿಜ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅರಿಯದ ಜನರು ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ತೊಡಗಿಹರು ವಾಗ್ವಾದದಿ ಸದಾ ಪೊರೆವ ತಂದೆ ಪರಮೇಶನ ಇರುವೆ ಸಂದೇಹಿಸಲ್ಪಡುತ್ತಿದೆ ರಕ್ಷೆ ನೀನೆ ನರವೇಶಿ ನವಿಲು ವಾಹನನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಹಿತರಾರೆ ಮಗೆ ರಕ್ಷೆ ನೀನೆ ನರವೇಶಿ ನವಿಲು ವಾಹನನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಹಿತರಾರೆ ಮಗೆ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. This is the 18th verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat, written by Ganapati Muni and which has been compiled in this format by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi himself. In this verse, Ganapati Muni says, "O Ramana, this is the right time for you to come in the human form as the world teacher, because you alone are the good to the whole world." Why is it the right time? Because it is the right time that you yourself have promised. You, as Gita Acharya Shri Krishna, you have told, "Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijameham." Whenever the dharma wanes and adharma waxes, to protect the virtue and the virtuous, you will come again and again in every yuga. This is the promise that you have done, and this is the right time for you to come, because I see that the dharma is deteriorating and adharma is rising, and people are wasting their time in unwanted discussions and debates, and those who are able to speak well are considered knowledgeable, but they don't understand the sign of knowledge is pure silence. They are not able to understand this. They are only praising the people who are simply boasting with their speech. So this is the right time for you to come and teach this truth, this glory of silence, O Ramana. The whole world is waiting for you, and what I see in this world, they are even questioning the existence of the Supreme Lord who is taking care of the whole universe. They are questioning whether is there a person called God? Is there a power called God which is protecting the whole world? They are questioning the very basis of the existence of that true self, the true Supreme, whoever exists. So, Ramana, this is the right time for you to come and bless all of us. And this shloka, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, has been translated by Ramana too in Tamil, and when he tells the same concept and he says, "Oh, who are we to describe the glory of those forms? How can we understand the glory of those supreme 10 forms? Various forms in which the Supreme appears and saves the virtuous and destroys all that is bad." For Ramana, everything is the same. There is no good and bad. There is no dharma and adharma. But for our understanding, we can understand that which brings good and happiness in the long term is dharma, and that which brings sorrow is papa. So Ganapati Muni says the world is filled in papa. They are filled with the wrong. They are doing the wrong deeds which are not taking them to that supreme, everlasting, eternal bliss. So teach them the path of dharma, that path which will bless them with the eternal bliss which is our own true nature. To teach us that dharma, that paramount duty for those who are desiring the highest, Ramana has come in the human form, And when he has come in the human form, Srimati Sulochana Natarajan notes that the shades of all the Dashavatara is seen in the life of Ramana. When we see the life of Ramana, we see that the Matsyavatara, Bhagavan, got enlightened in the Meenakshi Puri, where the Madurai Meenakshi is said to have the eyes like the fishes, and the fishes which through eyesight, through their sight, they hatch their eggs. And in that way, similar way, Ramana has learned the Nayana Diksha from Meenakshi Devi, and he bestows jnana. He makes us hatch and come out of our shell through his Kripa Drishti, through his sight, which he learned from Mother Meenakshi, which he imbibed from her. And when we think of Kurma, he enacted his enlightenment once again in Arunachala, in the tortoise rock, to show us that this body, even when it dies, the self is deathless. To teach us this truth, he played that drama, and he is the Narasimha. He is the Simha who has come in our dreams to wake us up. And he is the Vamana, who is the Trivikrama, who is all pervading and who has come to destroy our ego and make it subside inside the heart. And he is the Parashurama, who has come to destroy the ego, the pride of the ego, that it is ruling the whole world, to destroy that ego. And Parashurama is known to have cut the head of his mother. And Ganapati Muni, describing this incident, says, Parashurama did not cut the physical head of the mother. The head represents the ego. And Parashurama destroyed the ego of his mother. And then she became worshipable by all the people as Renukamba. Ramana too, through his divine touch to his mother, he liberated her. He destroyed the ego which was there in Alagammal, and Alagammal is worshipped now as the Matrbhuteshwara Linga, which is the center around which the Ramanashramam has grown. And we also see that he is Rama. Srimati Mahalakshmi Suryanandam, Maggie Mami as she is dearly called, she describes Ramana as Ramana is Rama. What all I have heard about Rama, I see embodied in Ramana. The monkeys around him, the squirrels, and the Gambhiriam, the majesty, reminds us of Sri Rama. And he is Sri Krishna, who is Gopala, who is the protector of all the go. I also heard that the word go also means Vedas. And Ramana is the Gopala, who has come to protect the Vedas, to give us the essence of the Vedas. He has come, and he is Sri Krishna himself, who gives us the Upadesha, just like how Krishna gave Upadesha to Arjuna and all of us, how to lead the life and how to continue our fight with this life, and yet ever be assured that we are driven by that Supreme Lord Sri Krishna himself. To teach us this truth, Ramana has come, and he is the Buddha. He is the one who teaches us what true love is. He is the one who has come to teach us what is the true ahimsa is, and he is Kalki. And Sadhu Swami says, Shanta Samudra Shri Ramana Avatar Charitai Ishepomadi Kanta Arulvalai Kannanadi Kalikala Tuditta Kadavuladi. He is the one who has been born in this Kaligalam. He is the Kalki, and he is the one who attracts everyone with his Arul Valai, which is with his net of grace. He is that Kanna, that Sri Krishna himself, says Sadhu Swami in that song. And we see that Ganapati Muni says, this is the right time for you to become the world teacher. because the world is simply wasting its time in unwanted debate and discussions. It is your time to come and reveal the glory of the silence. The Dakshinamurti, it is told that Dakshina, in one version of the story, where Dakshinamurti tries to answer all the doubts that Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatkumara and Sanat Sujata had. But at one point he understood that how much ever words can be spoken, the doubts do not end. One doubt leads to another, and there are many, many doubts which keeps rising again and again. And the only answer for all the doubts is to turn towards the doubter and abide in the source where that doubter arises. And this was revealed by the silence of Dakshinamurti. And at that moment of silence, all the rishis understood the truth of silence and understood that this was the paramount duty which we all have to turn towards, the paramount duty of abiding as the self, which is pure silent consciousness. To teach us this truth, this glory of silence, Ramana has come into our lives. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with a sharing by Dr.Kalarani Rengasamy on Devika Lotaram Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலம். Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw, when the Jiva merges in the self, which is Ananta Swarupa by itself, becomes Anandamaya. Bhagavan says, Paramanandattu padindavar, Apparamananda padivar. Paramanandattu padindavar, Apparamananda padivar. How wonderful it is. This is Atma Nivedana. When this happens, then one can realize the all-pervading self both within and outside. Once this Sukshma Vastu is realized, then there is nothing other than the self at all. Only the self provides. Then there can be no discrimination, there will be no mamahara. One will not keep aside anything for himself. Till that stage with mamahara, the sorrow persists. I'll tell you an example. A visitor to Meenakshi Amman temple was standing in a queue for darshan. At a distance, he saw a hundi. Offering can be put on that hundi. So he wants to put some money into that. So he took a 10 rupee note and he saw it was actually a cut note, a soiled cut note. No one will accept that note from him. He was also first hesitant to offer that. Then the next moment he thought, oh, Meenakshi Devi is Jaganmata. She can easily exchange any soiled or any cut note. So there will be no problem for her. So I am going to put this soiled cut note, 10 rupee note only. Meanwhile, he was going to reach the hundi. At a fourth person from where he was standing, a fourth person behind him called him and passed a 2000 rupee note to that person who was about to offer a 10 rupee soiled cut note. With great astonishment, he offered the 2000 also inside that hundi. Afterwards, they both came out after darshan, and the person who offered the cut 10 rupee note prized that person
who gave him the 2000 and said, "How great you are. What a broad mind you have, man. You have offered 2000. A very great thing you have done. I feel very proud of you." He was going on praising him. That person said, "Hello, stop. That was not my money. It was yours. When you were taking out something from your pocket, it fell down. I took it and gave it to you. That's all." Now that the 10 rupee wala, he really got a mild heart attack because he intended to offer only a cut 10 rupee note only. This is because of mamahara, the desire that I want to keep everything for myself. Till what time this mind will be wandering like this? Till he surrenders his mind to Atma, the self. Once this happens, there is no difference, no discrimination that is seen in the universe. Then there will be nothing that he wants in the world. There will be nothing that he wants to own for himself. Once, an instance I'll tell you, once a devotee gave a tiger skin to Bhagwan and was very adamant that Bhagwan must sit on that tiger skin. Bhagwan hesitated first, but ultimately the devotee's love for Bhagwan won. So Bhagwan sat on that tiger skin. But one fine day, another devotee came. When there was no one in the hall, only Bhagwan was sitting. He prostrated and said, "Can I ask you something, Bhagwan?" Bhagwan said, "Yes. I would like to have your tiger skin. Can you please give it to me?" Bhagwan immediately gave him the skin. With great delight, he was carrying that tiger skin in his arms, and on the way, ashram office staff saw this and stopped him. "Is it not Bhagwan's tiger skin? Why are you taking it?" He said, "Bhagwan only gave me." "What? Bhagwan gave you?" Next second, that office staff was in front of Bhagwan. "Bhagwan, did you give this tiger skin to that person?" "Why?" Bhagwan very calmly answered, "Someone gave and someone else is taking it. Just leave it." This is the result of abidance. Bhagwan lived as an example for that. In the next stanza, Bhagwan says, mind will be living long. His longevity will be more when we continuously give some vishaya to the mind to ponder over. The thought of the family members, my wife, I thought of my wife. She gave me coffee today morning with less sugar. I got angry and I scolded her. I should not have scolded her because I am already a diabetic patient. What will she do? But this one after the thought, one after the other, it will be coming. Likewise, there are so many vishayas in the world that will not allow the mind to be calm. It will be thinking something or the one else. In the say for example, in this stanza, Bhagwan says, in a fireplace, there's a fireplace and it is burning furiously. But if we want to reduce the fire or completely extinguish that fire, we are not supposed to put more firewood to that fire, burning fire. If we do so, it will not make it calm at all. It will burn more vigorously, isn't it? Likewise, if we put Vishaya to the mind more and more, think about something, anything, more and more, it will be wandering for more Vishayas. A single thought will continuously make to think more and more thoughts. That's why Bhagwan says, Indanam illa yeridan yavannam tan tane mandamai sandiyinai mannumo. Like when we take off the firewoods from the burning, that fireplace, automatically the fire gets reduced, isn't it? In the same way, when there is no firewood left out in the Homakundam, the fire will get subsided. It will be reduced and be calm. Likewise, when Vishayas or the thoughts is not given to the mind at all, because the mind can live only with the thoughts. It has to catch hold of something else. Urupatri undam. It has to catch something or the else. Likewise, then if we don't give any Vishaya to this mind, automatically the mind will experience only Shanti. It's like an elephant moving, it will be just oscillating its trunk like this. But if a small stick or a chain is given to that trunk, it will walk very calmly without any oscillation. Likewise, if we don't give any Vishaya to this mind, the mind will think, oh, what a person is this? He is not giving me any food for me. Any food for mind is thought only. So he is not giving any thought. So why should I live with this person? I will go to my origin. I will go to my source. Uditha idathil udingi iruttal. I will do that. So the mind will be living only when we are giving thoughts. So Bhagavan says, don't put Vishaya to that mind. If there is no, if we don't give any Vishaya to the mind will subside automatically, and it will travel to its original place, original position. Indanam illa eridan evvannam தான் தானே மந்தமாய் சாந்தியினை மன்னுமோ அந்த விதம் பற்று பொருள் அற்றால். When we don't have any attachments towards the worldly objects, பரந்த மனமும் தானாக ஓய்ந்து சாந்தி உற்றுவிடும். The wandering mind will also get subsided and abide in the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.
Om Ramana.
Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are sharing meditations on Vishwanatha Swami's Ramana Ashtottara, the 108 names, the litany of 108 names on Bhagavan Ramana. And we also have meditated on the fact that the Ashtottaram contains a brief biography, as it were, of Bhagavan. And the namas about Bhagavan's enlightenment have been just meditated upon. Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha Paramartha Vide Namaha. And we were meditating on the nama Tivraya Namaha, one who is very intense. Intense because completely absorbed by the self. Bhagavan actually calls that an avesham. It is as if he was possessed, he says. And the self, not having anything apart from it, as has been repeatedly meditated upon today, the self not having anything apart from it. When one is absorbed in the self, it is the most intense penance, because there is no two at all. When attention is an energy, it is the energy of the self, and this attention for many of us is divided. It goes on to multiple objects, many objects. It keeps grasping different objects. It keeps moving from one object to another. So the amount of attention given to one particular object, which arises in the form of one thought, is so minimal. It is so diluted, so to say. But if there is one thought, for a long period of time, we ourselves can recognize that the attention was very intense on that thought. The attention was intense. The intensity, we become aware of the intensity. Even when we have one particular thought for a slightly longer period of time. And we see in the case of great devotees, the intensity of their devotion, how they are not able to think of anything else. And this happens at certain points of time. We have the very touching story of Gora Kumbha, who could dance in ecstasy and he was stamping the mud with which he had to make the pots. He was a potter and he used to stamp with his feet. In those days, that was there was no technology for kneading the mud and bringing it to the proper consistency. So he used to stamp on it and he was singing of Lord Vithala and dancing. And he did not even notice that his young child had come into the mud, had come under his feet, and he trampled on the child. That was the kind of intense bhava in which he was at that time. But he realized it afterwards and he sorrowed for it. And of course, later, after putting him through many travails, Vithala gave the child back to him, graced him with the child again. But the point is that the intensity can be there, the Tivra Bhava can be there, and it can be there for a long time also in people who are deeply devoted. They may be deeply devoted even to their work. Some people are very intense about their work. Sometimes the intensity can be about an obsession which we have. We are so obsessed with someone or something that during that period we can forget everything. We hear of Tulasidasa's intensity about his wife, his passion for his wife, which would not allow him to be away for a day or two also. So when she had gone to his mother's house, he somehow reached her in torrential rain. He crossed the river which was in spate. He climbed up to the terrace holding something, a rope which he thought was a rope. And on looking down, looking out, his wife saw that spate, in that river of spate, what he had clung to was a dead body. The rope, so-called rope with which he had climbed up, was actually a snake that was hanging there. He was unaware of everything except his passion for the wife. And therefore she could say, turn this to love for the Lord. Turn this to love for the Lord. And with that same intensity, he yearned for Rama until he became united with him. But look at this young boy, Ramana. Look at this young boy, Ramana. His intense experience is of the all-enveloping self. There is nothing apart from it at all. There is no possibility of moving away from it even for a moment. And he does not move away. So that is the absolute pinnacle of intensity, which Vishwanatha Swami describes by the word Tivra. It is beautiful to read about it also. Bhagavan has described it on 2-3 occasions in answer to different devotees' questions. So he says that from that moment onwards, I was something very real, the only real thing about my present state, the only real thing. So that was the intensity. There was nothing else that was real. So how intense it was, the only real thing about my present state, and all the conscious activity connected with my body was centered on that I. On that I only. Any activity he was doing, anything that he was doing, was centered only on the I. That was how intense it was. From that moment onwards, the I or self focused attention on itself by a powerful fascination, he says. So much of fascination for that. Absorption in the self continued unbroken from that time on. Other thoughts might come and go like various notes of music, but the I continued like the fundamental Shruti note that underlies and blends with all other notes. The intensity was also something which was perfectly spontaneous and natural, and perhaps because of that more intense, because there was no possibility of moving away from it, no distraction whatsoever. Whether the body was engaged in talking, reading, or anything else, I was still centered on I. Prior to that event, I had no clear perception of myself and was not consciously attracted to it. But then he says, at this moment, a mysterious power rose up. Bhagavan says, call it Atmic power or anything else, rose within me and took possession of me. In Aksharamanamalai, Bhagavan says, Petanam vida vida peyai pidittene. You have caught me, you possessed me. So imagine one who is possessed. We can see that huge power. We can see when we say somebody is possessed, like one possessed, that intensity. That's what Vishwanatha Swami calls Thivra. And there was nothing else. I became indifferent to everything afterwards, he says. Everything I became indifferent to. He says, it appeared to be like an avesham or some spirit possessing me that changed my mental attitude and habits. I had a preference for some foods and an aversion to others. So this duality was there earlier. This tendency dropped off and all foods were swallowed with equal indifference, good or rotten, tasty or tasteless. Studies and duties became matters of utter indifference to me. And I went through my studies mechanically just to make others who were looking on think that I was reading. In fact, I never directed my attention towards the books, and consequently, I never understood their contents. This is a small, beautiful aside that Bhagavan earlier, when he would probably direct his attention. He says, at this point, I never directed my attention and I did not understand their contents, which means earlier to that, he still had that huge capacity to be Thivra. And he would direct his attention and he would understand everything, which we can see later. When he just reads a book, Parani Swami may give it to him or somebody else may give it to him, he would direct his attention to it naturally, spontaneously, the all-enveloping attention of self. And he became Sarvajna by that same Thivra, that attention falling on other things. Similarly, I went through other social duties, possessed all the time by this avesham. My mind was absent from them. His mind was absent from everything, he says, being fascinated and charmed by my own self. I would put up with every burden imposed on me at home, tolerating every slight with humility and forbearance. Periodically, interest in and introspection on the self would swallow up all former feelings and interests. Everything, he says, everything would be swallowed by that, by the interest in the self, by the charm of the self. I was charmed by my own self, he says. That was the intensity, and Bhagavan's words are so beautifully describing that Nama, Thivra. It is such a beautiful description. It makes us also long to be equally charmed by the self, to become Thivra for the self and to abide in it with that very, very intensity, that very love. And every nama we meditate on of Bhagavan takes us to that quality in him. When we meditate on that quality in Bhagavan, we imbibe that quality. That is the beauty of the Ashtottara. That is the beauty of these great works by the Jivan Muktas who have surrendered themselves to Bhagavan and become one with him by that grace. And thereby, their words lead us, grace us with that very same state. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We now have verses from Arunachala Aksharamanamalai, which will be chanted by Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. கோபமில் குணத்தோய் குறியாயனை கொள்ள கூரையன் செய்தேன் அருணாச்சலா. கௌதமர் போற்றும் கருணை மமலையே கடைக்கணி தாழ்வாய் அருணாச்சலா. சகலமும் விழுங்கும் கதிரொளியின மல ஜலஜமல தீடருணாச்சலா. சாப்பாடுன்னை சார்ந்துணவாயான் சாந்தமாய் போவன் அருணாச்சலா. சித்தம் குளிர கதிரஸ்தம் வைத்த முதவை திர அருள்மதி அருணாச்சலா. சீரை அழித்து நிர்வாணம செய்தருள் சீரை அழித்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. சுகக்கடல் பொங்க சொல்லுணர்வடங்க சும்மா பொருந்திடங்க அருணாச்சலா. சூது செய்தென்னை சோதி அறிவி உஞ்சோதி ஒரு காட்டருணாச்சலா. செப்படி வித்தை கற்றிப்படி மயக்கு விட்டுருபடி வித்தை காட்டருணாச்சலா. சேராயனின்மை நீராயுருகி கண்ணீராற்றழிவேன் அருணாச்சலா. செய்யன தள்ளீர் செய்வினை சுடுமலர் உய்வகையே துரை அருணாச்சலா. சொல்லாது சொல்லினி சொல்லரனில் என்று சும்மா இருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ, அருணாச்சல சிவ, அருணாச்சல சிவ, 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ, அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ, அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி நண்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமணா. You are on mute, Akka.
Namo Ramana. We conclude the satsang with Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan, and the Ashtottara will be performed by Dileep Simha at his altar, and it will be chanted by Vaibhavji, Prarthana, Uma and Ashwini.
Shivaya Namaha. Om Gurave Namaha. Om Akhanda Sambhidakaraya Namaha. Om Mahaujase Namaha. Om Karanodbhavaya Namaha. Om Jagathitavatārāya Namaha. Om Shri Bhuminathasthalostitaya Namaha. Om Parasharakulottamsaya Namaha. Om Sundararya Tapafhalaya Namaha. Om Kamaniya Sucharitraya Namaha. Om Sahayamba Sahayavate Namaha. Om Shonachala Maholina Manasaya Namaha. Om Swarnahastakaya Namaha. Om Shrimadvadashanta Mahasthale Labdha Vidyodayaya Namaha. Om Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha. Om Paramarthavide Namaha. Om Tivraya Namaha. Om Pitrupadanveshine Namaha. Om Indumaulina Pitrumate Namaha. Om Pituradeshatah Shonashailam Praptaya Namaha. Om Tapomayaya Namaha. Om Udasinaya Namaha. Om Mahayogine Namaha. Om Mahotsahaya Namaha. Om Kushagradhiye Namaha. Om Shanta Sankalpa Samrambhaya Namaha. Om Susandrishe Namaha. Om Savitre Namaha. Om Sthiraya Namaha. Om Tapakshapita Sarvangaya Namaha. Om Pullambuja Vilochanaya Namaha. Om Chandrikasitahasa Shri Manditanana Mandalaya Namaha. Om Chutavatyam Samasinaya Namaha. Om Churnitakhila Vibhramaya Namaha. Om Veda Vedanta Tattvajnaya Namaha. Om Chinmudrine Namaha. Om Trigunatigaya Namaha. Om Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha. Om Virajadachalakritaye Namaha. Om Uddiptanayanaye Namaha. Om Purnaya Namaha. Om Rachitachalatandavaya Namaha. Om Gambhiraya Namaha. Om Paramacharyaya Namaha. Om Suprasannaya Namaha. Om Abhayapradaya Namaha. Om Dakshinasya Nibhaya Namaha. Om Dhiraya Namaha. Om Dakshinabhimukhaya Namaha. Om Swaraje Namaha. Om Maharshaye Namaha. Om Bhagavate Namaha.
Om Vidyaya Namaha. Om Bhuma Vidya Visharadaya Namaha. Om Vimalaya Namaha. Om Dirgadarshine Namaha. Om Aptaya Namaha. Om Rujumarga Pradarshakaya Namaha. Om Samadrishe Namaha. Om Satyadrishe Namaha. Om Satyaya Namaha. Om Prashantaya Namaha. Om Amita Vikramaya Namaha. Om Sukumaraya Namaha. Om Sadanandaya Namaha. Om Mridubhashine Namaha. Om Dayarnavaya Namaha. Om Shri Shonachala Radbhuta Skandashrama Niketanaya Namaha. Om Saddarshanopadeshtre Namaha. Om Sadbhakta Vrinda Parivrataaya Namaha. Om Ganesha Muni Bhrangena Sevitangris Saroruhaya Namaha. Om Geetopadesha Saradi Grantha Sanchinna Samshayaya Namaha. Om Varnashrama Matatitaya Namaha. Om Rasagnaya Namaha. Om Saumyaya Namaha. Om Atmavate Namaha. Om Sarvavali Matastanam Aradhyaya Namaha. Om Sarvasadgunile Namaha. Om Atma Ramaya Namaha. Om Mahabhagaya Namaha. Om Matrumukti Vidayakaya Namaha. Om Vinataya Namaha. Om Vinutaya Namaha. Om Vipraya Namaha. Om Munindraya Namaha. Om Pavakojvalaya Namaha. ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ षोडाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुखसकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्घिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿದಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆ ಬಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Jai.